Enyaq was Skoda's very first EV, and in this updated form continues to use its Volkswagen Group EV technology to good effect, while still managing to incorporate a very Skoda look and feel. This facelift brings a sharper look, which continues to clothe one of the most spacious cabins in the segment. And in terms of drive range and equipment, both SUV and coupe versions of this car will look attractive in the showroom for those who get the right price or lease deal.
Skoda's Enyaq electric family hatch gets a useful mid-term update. Here, we're going to take a closer look. Back in 2021, Skoda finally brought us its very first full electric car, the Enyaq, then known as the Enyaq iV, and a model that started a bold new era in Skoda design. First launched as a boxy SUV hatch, followed 2 years later by an SUV coupe. This was the Czech brand's take on VW Group EV engineering, and successful it proved to be, with over 250,000 versions of this car sold in its first 4 years of production. By early 2025, though, competition had ramped up substantially, hence the need for the mid-term Enyaq update we're looking at here. Despite it frequently being Europe's most popular electric car, the original Enyaq was in truth a slightly confusing product, not just because it was Skoda's first EV, rear-driven and enormously heavy, but also because of its design conundrums. It looked mid-sized, but it was priced compact. It claimed to herald a new era in electric Skoda motoring, but it had an enormous combustion-style grille. And the iV in its model name was the same as the brand had used on its fossil-fueled plug-in hybrids. So Skoda had some sorting out to do with this car, and some repositioning too after the arrival of its second EV in 2024, the only slightly smaller Elroq. All of which explains why the car we're looking at here represents more than just a mid-term Enyaq update. It's basically a model line relaunch, and it's a relaunch carrying a price tag that for the first time properly pitches this car into the market's most tightly fought segment, that for mid-sized EV crossovers. To help it there, the Czech designers have given this car some sleeker looks, better driving range, faster charging speeds and enhanced media tech. Now you can find out more about this kind of car by downloading the Car and Driving app. And if your interest is specifically in this Enyaq, then just stay with us for the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. To expect engaging driving dynamics from a car of this kind is clearly over-optimistic. Realistically, you know Enyaq weighs in at under 2 tons. To hope for journeying and refinement is a bit more realistic, aided by its now sleek bodywork. The improved Enyaq serves up plenty of that. As for ride quality, well, as we said in our test of the smaller Elroq, it's pretty good by class standards, but it could be so much better if body control wasn't so tightly reined in to satisfy the industry press. You'll hear more positive comments about Enyaq ride quality elsewhere, but that's usually because the testers have been in a version of this car fitted with the DCC adaptive chassis control system that hardly any customers will actually specify. The name Enyaq is apparently derived from the Irish word Enya. That means source of life. Now the source in this case is the same two-way choice of 63 and 82 kilowatt-hour battery packs, which power the mainstream versions of all the other mid-sized VW Group EV crossovers using this conglomerate's bespoke MEB electrified platform. These are also pretty much the same as the packs that are used in the earlier versions of this model, as are the electric motors that they power. The smaller 63 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which can't be had on the coupe version of this car, features in the base 60 model, allied to a 204 PS motor, which takes you to 62 in 7.8 seconds, or if you're more restrained, offers up a range of 268 miles. Here we're trying a mid-level 85 model with the larger 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which works with a 286 PS motor, and that combination delivers a sprint time of 6.5 seconds and a range figure of up to 359 miles. Further up the lineup lie the 82 kilowatt-hour all-wheel drive dual motor variants, the 85X model with 334 miles of range, and a top VRS model which offers 304 PS, 0 to 62 in 5.2 seconds, and 347 miles of range. Since your budget probably will restrict you to a single motor model, that's what we've opted to try here. In case you're not familiar with VW Group engineering in an EV of this size, it's really worth pointing out that unlike quite a few of its rivals, the motor in question sits on the rear axle rather than on the front one, which prior to this Enyaq's introduction was a format that we hadn't seen in any Skoda since the 70s. Here it allows for a turning circle which at just 9.3 meters is so impressive that you might actually wonder whether this car has four-wheel steering. It doesn't. Another thing this car doesn't have is very much brake regen assistance. Skoda still hasn't got around to fitting steering wheel brake regeneration paddles as standard to the mainstream models. That's of course why we don't have one here. Nor are there selectable regeneration modes on the central screen, just a B setting on the gear selector. Even if you get a top spec model or you pay extra to have steering wheel paddles, there's no setting that's fierce enough to provide the kind of useful one pedal setting championed by some rivals. Using brake regeneration to improve mileage frugality is a concept that many EV drivers are now well used to, and Skoda really does need to do more to help them do it. Well, more than this anyway. Talking of settings, all Enyaqs these days have drive modes, eco, normal or sport, or an individual setting which you can set up by altering various drive parameters on the central screen. One of these is steering feel, which remains pretty anaesthetised actually, unless you pay extra for a model that's fitted with more direct progressive dynamic steering. You might also find it worth knowing that when it is fitted with an optional folding tow bar, any Enyaq is also capable of towing trailers weighing up to 1,400 kilos. That really is quite a hefty figure for an EV, although exercising that capability, of course, would doubtless decimate your drive range. Now, he said at the beginning of this film that this was more than just an Enyaq update and really nothing less than a model line relaunch. That's something reflected by the quite different front-end look of this improved Enyaq, which, as before, has a sleeker SUV-Coupe variant that sells alongside the standard hatch version, which is, of course, our focus here today. It's all based around the Czech brand's recently adopted modern, solid design language, and as part of that, Skoda has grafted on the tech deck face we first saw with the company's Vision 7S concept car back in 2022. The core product is of course unchanged, although in the case of this SUV version it's become 9 mils longer and a bit sleeker. The drag coefficient here is down to 0.245 CD from 0.255 before. The energy benefits of which you can decimate by replacing the standard 19-inch wheels with larger 21-inch rims like these. For some reason, Skoda now feels the need to wrap silver finishing around the lower regions of its mainstream Enyaq models, either to emphasize the 4,658mm length, that's 74mm longer than its close cousin, the VW ID4, or perhaps to endorse crossover vibes that are embellished by subtle roof rails. As usual with VW Group EDs, old-fashioned rear drum brakes still feature. But as we said, the main change is over the original here at the front, which loses the early version's huge grinning grille and gains the less distinctive, but Skoda hopes, the more contemporary looking tech deck nose we mentioned earlier. As part of that, the LED headlights get hidden, the company badge is replaced by brand script, and outer upper daytime running lights flank a slim black upper panel that can be illuminated at extra cost. As before, the boxy back is partly disguised by a large tailgate spoiler, and once again the brand logo makes way for dark chrome finished lettering. The C-shaped LED tail lamps are much as before, as is of course the bit that you can't see, namely the VW Group Modulare Antriebsbaukasten or MEB platform, which translates from the German as child's building set. Enough though with the outside, let's get into the cabin. There are far fewer changes in a cabin that's now shared with the brand's smaller Elroq EV, although Skoda still reckons the updates it represents over the original Enyaq's interior to be significant. Claimed justification for the now higher pricing is provided by extra standard kit across the lineup, like extra media features for this big 13-inch central screen, and heating for the redesigned steering wheel, which still looks a bit strange in the two-spoke format that is fitted to most models. There are more sustainable materials used across the cabin too, the extent of which depend on your choice between various available extra cost trimming packages, which do quite a lot actually to lift the rather dour ambience of this car in its standard loft spec. For mainstream models, there are 3 other cabin style choices. Skoda calls these design selections. The most affordable upgrade is the Lodge package, which seats you on fabric that's fashioned from recycled fishing nets, and it wraps you in EasyJet style orange seat belts. The priciest one is the Suite package that can be had in black or a cognac light brown and surrounds you in various kinds of real and faux leather. We would stick with the mid-level lounge option we have here. This features grey micro suede with mint green piping, using stitching and fabric, which in a nice design touch stretch right across your eyeline every time you look at the instrument binnacle, and that reminds you just how plush everything actually is here. Compared to this, even quite a plush VW ID4 seems quite Spartan, and it's all at the opposite extreme from the rather soulless, minimalist simplicity that's characterized in this segment by Tesla and by its army of Chinese copies. Lots of effort's gone into cabin detailing, possibly too much effort actually. If on the passenger side you run your fingers down from the dash top to the glove box, you'll encounter no fewer than 4 different kinds of surface finishing. It's all really very busy. We'd hoped that the user-friendly smart dials developed for the Superb and the Kodiaq might have made it into this car as part of this update, but no, the fiddly touch slider control below the screen remains, although it is now at least illuminated. Skoda provides a steering column start-stop button here, but in practice you never use it because all you have to do to start the car up is to push the gear selector, and all that's necessary to stop it is to activate the electronic handbrake. Let's get on to screens. The 5-inch digital cockpit instrument display is quickly covered with a central speed and battery readout, which can be shifted left or right to make space for nav instructions or for drive assist info. As for that big 13-inch dashboard central screen, well, although it's certainly improved, it still isn't perfect, but it does give the monitors of rival Stellantis models in this class a lesson or two in user-friendliness. Climate, nav, phone and music functions are all accessible along the bottom frame, and the home screen can be viewed either with rows of icons or with customizable widget sections. We've got voice control, radio, phone and nav mapping here. Drivers can define up to 5 shortcuts leading to frequently accessed vehicle functions and up to 4 shortcuts for apps. As usual with the brand, there's SmartLink, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wireless phone connectivity, and there's a decently intuitive LoRa voice control system with ChatGPT enablement. What else? Well, the front seats here are supportive and well bolstered, and they can be set up quite commandingly. Rearward visibility isn't great thanks to those substantial rear pillars, so it's just as well that all-round sensors and a rear view camera are standard fit. A neat touch is the way that the climate system switches into an energy-saving eco mode on the passenger side when that seat's unoccupied. In true Skoda style, there's an umbrella secreted in the front door lining, but only on the driver's side actually. The front passenger is just going to have to get wet. We're not quite as enthusiastic as Skoda is about its simply clever cabin storage features. I mean, there's certainly plenty of space to put things, but to us it really doesn't seem particularly clever to have the glove box halved in size by the fuse box, to have forgotten an overhead compartment for your sunglasses too, or for that matter, to have made the cup holders so tiny that only the smallest cups will fit in them. Still, there are plenty of plus points. There's a deep box between the seats with a nice ratcheting lid and 2 lift-out compartments. Just ahead are coin slots and a deep stowage tray by the stubby gear selector. While at the base of the centre stack there is a jolly neat compartment with a 15-watt cooled phone charging mat, although this space is cluttered by the fact that its twin USB-C ports need unsightly USB-A converter leads. There's a vast open 11.4 litre area below the centre console, and big flockline door bins are always welcome, as is the usual Skoda ticket clip on the windscreen. Time to take a look in the rear, where wide opening doors make it easy to lean in and install child seats. Now, will this Enyaq's 170mm length advantage over its Elroq showroom stablemate pay off back here? Well, no, not really. The gains in leg and headspace that this Enyaq enjoys over its smaller sibling aren't especially noticeable, and few will feel that they alone justify this larger model's significant price premium. But assuming you're not making that comparison, you are likely to find the rear of this car a spacious and really quite airy and inviting place by class standards. Legroom is difficult to better in this segment, and 2 6-footers could certainly sit comfortably here behind a couple of front-seated passengers of the same size. This is also a wider cabin than you might expect a mid-sized SUV to be able to provide, and with no central transmission tunnel here to obstruct things, 3 adults could actually fit reasonably easily into the back of this car. This bench doesn't either slide or recline as it would in a comparably priced combustion-powered Skoda Enyaq or in a Kodiaq, but otherwise there's very little to criticise here, especially now that the brand has standardised tri-zone air conditioning, and that gives you this little climate control panel here below the central vents. Decent storage provision includes reasonably sized door bins, that's along with map pockets and pockets for mobile phones too, both stitched into the backs of the front seats. Coat hooks feature on the B pillars and on the grab handles, plus you get individual overhead lights and rather small pop-out cup holders in this central armrest. The twin central USB-C ports have now been boosted to offer up to 45 watts of power, and you can also add these useful pull-up side window blinds here. Decently sized rear quarter-light windows stop it from getting too gloomy in the back here too. Let's finish with a look out back, which is where you'll have to store everything because unlike some of the segment rivals here, this Skoda can't offer an underbonnet frunk. An Elroq customer who's looking for justification to spend more on an Enyaq would certainly find it here. For a start, unlike with most versions of that smaller model, the tailgate is power and gesture operated, and it rises to reveal a much larger stowage space, 585 litres for this SUV compared to 470 litres in an Elroq. The Enyaq Coupe boot is nearly as spacious, rated at 570 litres, which means that both Enyaq variants are more practical than popular segment choices like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6 and the Toyota BZ4X. Plus, there's a wide tailgate opening and a low loading lip. Your only stowage options beneath the floor is a narrow compartment which is intended for the charging leads. Above the base though, this is a very functional space. Removable panels mask recessed areas on both sides, which would make getting awkward items like pushchairs in much easier. In addition, there are 2 sturdy bag hooks on either side, a 12-volt socket on the right, inner hatch lights to aid nighttime loading above you, and an ice scraper come tyre tread depth measurer here secreted in the tailgate. Plus, Skoda's now added a QR code back here which links to the owner manuals. There is also a ski hatch so you can poke through longer items. Not so good is the brand's meanness in relegating rear seat back release buttons to the options list. Without these, you have to stretch forward to the seat shoulder catches. When everything is flattened though, there's up to 1,710 litres of space available in this SUV variant. It's 1,610 litres in the Enyaq Coupe. Freed from the shackles of being the price starting point model for Skoda's electric range, Enyaq prices have since gone onwards and upwards, but in more recent times, the two base variants with the smaller 63 kWh battery and SEL or Edition trim have been helped by the availability of a £1,500 government grant, which means that at the time of our filming in summer 2025, it was possible to get an entry-level 63 kWh SEL spec Enyaq for just over £37,500 with the grant applied. At the same time as the grant arrived, Skoda also introduced something quite surprising, a van version of this Enyaq, the Enyaq Cargo. It's really more of an aftermarket conversion, which costs £1,815, excluding VAT, over the price of the bigger battery Enyaq 85 and 85X models. And it includes tinted black rear windows, a bulkhead and a strong load-based surface. Unfortunately though, the Enyaq Cargo model doesn't qualify for any government grant. Here our focus is on the standard Enyaq model. As you might know, you can also have this as an SUV coupe though. We'll cover that model separately. This ordinary version has a much cheaper price starting point than the sleeker body style, around £39,000 at the time of this test in summer 2025. That's because it's available with a base SEL trim level and a smaller 63 kWh battery that customers of the coupe can't have. Most customers of this ordinary Enyaq SUV ignore base trim and find the extra £1,100 for the mid-range edition version we're trying here. With that car, you'll be offered the option of finding a substantial £4,200 more for the larger 82 kWh battery that we've been testing too. But by that point, with a few extras added, you'll be looking at a spend of around £45,000. If that figure doesn't bother you, then you can push on towards £50,000 with more dynamic looking Sportline trim that's based around the 82 kWh battery and available for around £1,500 more in dual motor all-wheel drive form. Or you could go well beyond £50,000 with the fastest version, the top Enyaq VRS, another dual motor model, but this time with an 84 kWh battery. Where standard and coupe versions of the Enyaq are directly comparable, choosing the ordinary SUV body shape will save you £1,900. What all of this means is that we can now no longer talk about this Enyaq the way we did in our earlier test, where we told you that it was a mid-sized electric SUV for the price of a compact one. Because Skoda is now charging much the same kind of money for this car that you'd need with most of its volume brand competitors, this improved Enyaq now has a vast amount more segment competition. And that's particularly from the VW Group EV rivals that share most of its engineering. A base VW ID4 with much of the same engineering, for example, it'll save you around £2,000 on a base Enyaq, and with a bigger battery ID4, the saving over the 82 kWh Enyaq we're trying here could be more than twice that. That ID4's clone, the Ford Explorer, costs very much the same as an Enyaq 2, as does a base MG IM5. And two other segment challenges which suggest you consider: the Renault Scenic E-Tech Electric and the Vauxhall Grandland Electric. They undercut this Skoda by around £2,000. If you are considering a mid-spec, bigger battery Enyaq like the one we have here, and you find yourself coming to acquisition with the necessary £40,000 to £45,000 budget in mind, there are loads of other options, of course. Some of them are perhaps familiar, like the Tesla Model 3, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia's EV6, Polestar's 2, Nissan's Ariya, Volvo's EX40 and the Ford Capri, and some perhaps less familiar like the BYD Sea-Lion 7, the MG IM6, the Xiaopeng G6, the Leapmotor C10, the KGM Taurus EVX, the Skywell BE11 and the JQ7. If, having considered all that, you conclude it is an Enyaq of some kind that you really want, then you're going to need to know about the standard spec here. So let's take a look at that right now. At the foot of the lineup, there's a lot more kit than you'll get with the base Elroq, which might help you to justify the difference in price between these two cars. With this Enyaq, even base SEL trim comes with 19-inch Proteus silver alloy wheels, LED headlights, black roof rails, all-round parking sensors, power folding mirrors, LED rear lights, rear privacy glass, keyless entry and a powered tailgate with gesture control. There's also predictive adaptive cruise control with traffic jam assist. This works with the standard travel assist function that makes extended use of swarm data for extra journeying support. Inside with SEL spec, there's Skoda's Loft design package that gives you upholstery in fabric and artificial leather, along with LED ambient lighting. Plus there's a 5-inch digital cockpit instrument display, a rear view camera, heat for the front seats and the steering wheel, a 15-watt cooled wireless charging mat and tri-zone climate control. Media features are taken care of by a large 13-inch touchscreen display with navigation, LoRa voice control, an 8-speaker audio system and Skoda's wireless smart link system for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto phone mirroring. Plus there's also a Skoda Connect remote charging app via which you can schedule charging and preheat or pre-cool the cabin. So pretty much everything that you really need comes with SEL spec. If you insist on having more though, you'll be pointed to the mid-level edition model that we've been trying here. This adds full LED matrix headlights with range control, smarter Regulus 19-inch wheels, scrolling rear indicators, rear side window blinds and power and massage functions for the driver's seat. If your Enyaq needs a more dynamic looking vibe, you'll be steered towards Sportline trim. This is distinguished by 20-inch Vega black alloy wheels and unique Sportline bumpers, along with an illuminated version of the Tech Deck nose, a gloss black finish for the roof rails too, for the window trim as well, and tailgate lettering. Inside, Sportline models come with a bespoke design selection package, which features micro suede and artificial leather upholstery, front sport seats and a 3-spoke steering wheel. Plus there's also aluminium pedals, an area view camera, a 12+1 speaker Canton sound system, a head-up display, a variable height boot floor, releases for the rear seat backrests and a boot net. Drive stuff fitted from this level upwards includes brake regeneration steering wheel paddles, sports suspension and more direct progressive dynamic steering. That only leaves the top VRS version. This is set apart by unique Draconis 20-inch wheels and VRS bumpers. There's a VRS Suite design selection trimmed cabin with bespoke VRS front sport seats. Plus you get dynamic chassis control adaptive damping and park assist with remote park assist to steer the car into spaces. Options, let's get on to those now. It's a pity Skoda wants to charge so much extra, £1,100 for the heat pump that you'll need to preserve driving range in really cold weather. Otherwise, once you've considered the possibility of a panoramic sunroof and a tow bar, probably the first two things to look at are the transport package, which gives you a boot net, a variable height boot floor, a rear seat back release button and a rear storage compartment, and the winter package. This will give you a heated windscreen, also heated rear seats. For the SEL and Edition trims that most customers will choose, Skoda offers a chance to lift the slightly dour Loft cabin trim with 3 optional design selection packages: Lodge, Lounge and Suite. Lodge uses recycled Econel upholstery, orange stitching and orange seat belts. We've got the Lounge package here. This uses a combination of faux leather and micro suede trimming with mint green piping for the seats and for the dashboard. Finally, if you want something really luxurious, there's Suite. This is available in either black or light brown cognac, and it uses well-chosen combinations of real and synthetic leather. Most of this Enyaq's optional niceties, though, are bundled together in the two option packs your dealer will want you to consider, Advanced and Max. Both of these include all the items in the transport package that we mentioned earlier on. Now, with the Advanced package, we have a head-up display. We also have a 12+1 speaker Canton sound system, an area view camera, and Skoda's illuminated tech deck top grille panel. With the top Max pack, you get all those things, along with park assist, with remote park assist, along with dynamic chassis control, that's adaptive damping of course, progressive dynamic steering and brake regeneration paddles. Before you spend too much extra on any of those things though, or on the larger 20 or 21 inch wheel sizes, we've got 21 inch Aquarius anthracite rims here. Remember, you'll almost certainly have to pay Skoda more for your choice of paint colour. The only standard shades available are solid energy blue or hyper green. We have got metallic olive green here. This is an exclusive colour for this model. Onto safety, which is well covered, as you'd expect from a VW Group product in this class. There's front assist autonomous braking, which also recognises pedestrians and cyclists, plus lane assist, swerve support, emergency steering support with turn assist, blind spot detection and dynamic road sign display. The travel assist feature that we mentioned earlier on, that's part of Skoda's Travel Assist Plus pack. This will give you lane assist plus with narrow lane assist, urban evasive steering support and emergency assist too. This brings the car to a controlled stop if you're taken ill at the wheel, of course. Some of these ADAS features can occasionally get a bit irritating until you figure out how to work with them or turn them off, but it's nothing like as intrusive as is the case with so many Chinese models in this class we've been trying recently. All Enyaqs get the usual passive safety features too, of course. In this case, that means twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a central interaction airbag too, all linked to an e-call system. Avoid base trim and you'll get rear side airbags too. Big improvements are claimed here for EV range figures, but that is something of an exaggeration. You might certainly hope that more might have been achieved in the, well, it's 5 years since the car was first launched. The 63 kilowatt-hour model's 268 mile stat is just 14 miles further than it was when we tested this car back in 2020, and the 82 kilowatt-hour battery's 359 mile figure is only 28 miles better. And of course, as usual with all EVs, the official stated figures can be somewhat optimistic. As with most electric vehicles, you're going to have to drive like Miss Marple and steer permanently clear of faster highways, or they're very difficult to achieve. Obviously, for frugality, you'll need to always select the B brake regeneration setting on the gear selector and use the most economic eco drive mode. We've been getting around 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour in this test. That's acceptable by current class standards, but they would fall in winter unless you paid the significant amount extra that Skoda wants for a heat pump. One of the few things that really disappointed us about the original version of this model was its very feeble DC charging speed. Initial base Enyaq models could only charge at 50 kilowatts unless you upgraded them, and the maximum available DC charging speed further up the lineup at extra cost was a modest 125 kilowatts. We weren't the only commentators to criticise this, and Skoda did move to enhance things soon after, but not enough it seems. The 85 model we're trying today, DC maxes out at just 135 kilowatts, one of the segment's lower figures. The smaller battery 60 version strangely is better at 165 kilowatts. The dual motor 85X manages 175 kilowatts, and the top VRS can DC charge at up to 185 kilowatts. Is all this good enough? Well, plenty of other models in this sector, notably from VW Group and Stellantis brands, really can't much better the Enyaq in this area. But in a class where Tesla's Model 3 has long DC charged at up to 250 kilowatts, and an MG IM6 now DC charges at up to 396 kilowatts, you have to say that Skoda has a long way to go here. The charging speed figures we just gave you reflect in the quoted DC 0 to 80% charge times, 24 minutes for the 63 kilowatt hour model, 28 minutes for this 82 kilowatt hour variant, and 26 minutes for the 85X and the VRS. If all you mostly do is charge at home, then you might not be all that bothered about DC charging stats. Using a typical 7.2 kilowatt wall box, the base 63 kilowatt hour model needs around 9 hours for a full charge. That reduces to 6 hours 30 minutes if you can use an 11 kilowatt three-phase supply. This 82 kilowatt hour model and the top two dual motor variants need quite a lot longer, 12 hours from a 7.2 kilowatt wall box or 8 hours 15 minutes from an 11 kilowatt supply. Avoid the smaller battery and your Enyaq will now come fitted with bidirectional DC charging. This could allow the drive battery to double as a supplementary home energy storage unit. If your house has a suitable bidirectional charging enabled DC wall box, this feature might enable you to control the flow of electricity to and from the car according to preference, based around, for example, current electricity prices or the need to sustain your electricity at home in the event of a power cut. What else? Insurance, well, that starts at Group 27 for the base 60 variant, 34 for the 85 version, 37 for the dual motor 85X, and 39 for the top VRS. Because most Enyaqs are now over the £40,000 price point, nearly every model attracts the government's £425 road tax expensive vehicle supplement. Like all EVs, the 2025 to 26 tax year sees this one benefit in kind rated at 3%. Depreciation seems reasonable, predicted for this SUV model to be 47 to 50% after the usual 3 years and 36,000 miles. That figure is about the same as a Tesla Model Y. Interestingly, it's far better than the Enyaq Coupe. That's rated at 41 to 43% over the same period. The Enyaq only requires servicing every 2 years and there's no mileage limit between visits. As usual with EVs, the battery pack is warranted to have at least 70% of its usable capacity after 8 years or 100,000 miles. There is the usual unremarkable 3-year, 60,000 mile Skoda warranty. Only the third year has a mileage limitation though, and there's a 12-year body protection guarantee, a 3-year paint warranty, and 3 years of Skoda assistance. That includes European breakdown cover. It is a pity that this Enyaq has lost its low pricing trump card in the family EV segment, but it is still decent value for what you get when you take into account power, space and equipment. Whether it's worth the extra over its Elroq showroom stablemate is another question. For many customers, it won't be. So our advice is to try both cars before deciding and take the family with you when you do. As for the way this Skoda stacks up against alternatives from other brands, well, the market has changed beyond recognition in the 5 years since the Enyaq first appeared, and in some areas, notably charging speed and driving range, we're not convinced that it's evolved quite as much as it needed to. But that is artfully disguised by the sharper looks and what can be rather lovely interior packaging. A typical Skoda customer will also like the rather relaxed way that this car goes about its business on the road, its rear-driven urban manoeuvrability and the many simply clever practical cabin features. In summary then, the changes made here might not be enough to sustain class-leading sales, but they are certainly sufficient to keep this Enyaq as a car you simply can't ignore if you're shopping in the mid-sized EV segment. Of all the VW Group engineered EVs in this class, it's probably still the one that family folk should turn to first. And that continues to make it a very important player indeed.